All right, so today I want to talk about a story that's very sad in a way, but needs to be talked about nonetheless. In that we have a lot of racism and Black Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff that's been all over the news lately, and most of it's just flat out misinformation, BS, total garbage, and that um, they only care about it when it fits their political narrative. Again, the point being is that they only care about it when it's blacks being the blacks are the victims and whites are the oppressor. Again, the whole David Dorn thing is an evidence of that. I mean, this story I'm going to talk about is evidence of that, and the fact that the majority of the pain and suffering of blacks comes from the welfare state. Again, the fact that they conveniently ignore that just goes to show that if they either think black lives do not matter whatsoever or black lives only matter when we can blame white people. I mean, I think is the better way of putting it. The story I'll talk a little about here, and then I'll bring it up. Africa is again the world's epicenter of modern day slavery, and it's wrote by Abdi Latif Dahir. And I'll read a little bit about it and then talk about it. Africa just recorded the highest rate of modern day enslavement in the world. Armed conflicts, state sponsored forced labor, and forced marriages were the main causes behind the estimated 9.2 million Africans who live in servitude without the choice to do so, according to the 2018 Global Slavery Index. And despite these practices being widespread, slavery has remained a largely invisible issue, in part because it disproportionately affects the most marginalized members of society. Slavery was especially prevalent in Eritrea and Mauritania. I don't know how you say that, where slavery has an institutionalized practice. In Eritrea, for instance, the one party state of President Isaias Afwerki has overseen a notorious national conscription service accused of drafting citizens for an indefinite period, contributing to the wave of refugees fleeing the country. Workers that have claimed that they were forced to work in the nation's first modern mine are also currently suing the Vancouver-based mining company Nevsun that owns a majority stake in the mine. Um, Now, I don't want to read the whole article here. You can go check it out if you really want to. But the main point being is if Black Lives Matter so much, and if you claim to care so much about Black lives, where is the outrage when it comes to this kind of stuff? I mean, 9 million people enslaved still to this day, and no outrage whatsoever. I mean, what, 10 unarmed black men are killed every year at the hands of police, and it's the biggest story in the world, but yet we got millions of people enslaved and nobody cares. Like, where are our priorities? Where are our priorities? Like, this should be the main thing in the news and should be the main thing that's being talked about. And people are probably wondering, okay, well, why aren't we talking about it? Well, it's very simple in that the Black Lives Matter crowd only cares when they can blame whites for their problems. They will never ever, at least no, I don't think so until there's significant reform. They will never care about an issue that affects black lives until or sorry, unless they can blame whites. They will never care about an issue that blacks are the reason for the problem. Again, they never bring up the welfare state, which the welfare state clearly and objectively causes much more harm to the black community than racism, but they never bring it up. Why do they never bring it up? Because they've been voting for it for 50 or 60 years and no sign of a change. Again, this is why I do not have sympathy for these people, and not the slaves. I tons of sympathy for them, but the Black Lives Matter crowd in that they walk over the massive pile of bodies being these slaves and to a lesser degree the people suffering at the hands of the welfare state, and they point out the handful of people that are unfairly, unjustifiably killed by police every year and be like, this is the biggest problem in the world. No, it really isn't. Should we try and prevent that kind of stuff? Yes, but ignoring millions of people that are enslaved and pretending like the lives of the 10 black, I don't know what the exact number is, I know it's incredibly small, um, that people that are killed, at the hands of police unjustifiably, like, come on, we should be so much more worried about this kind of stuff. Like I say, the problem is that, though, these people are largely enslaved by Muslims and by other Africans. So again, because we can't blame white people, we're not going to talk about it. And again, this is just another piece of evidence that backs that up. I mean, not that we didn't have enough evidence already. I mean, the David Dorn, perfect example. He was killed by a black man who was trying to loot a business, and he tried to stop him, and the guy shot him. Does his life matter? No. There was a cop killed in Oakland. The people, I think a couple even, cops, someone ambushed him. Does his life matter? No. So again, if your the literal name of your organization, you don't even believe in. You don't even believe in it. And the other big problem is that Black Lives Matter is a political organization. A lot of the money that gets donated to them ends up in the hands of Democrats. So let's stop pretending that it's not a political organization, because it's clearly a political organization. It is clearly a political organization. So the point being, I guess, is we should be far more up in arms about the literal slavery that's still going on in parts of the world. And I guess the other thing to point out too is that um, because of people like Hillary Clinton, and slavery goes on in Libya today. There is literal slave markets in Libya. Hillary Clinton overthrew Gaddafi, and because of that, slavery exists in Libya. Again, where's calling out her again? Where? No, but because she's a Democrat, no calling. No, you can't call out Democrats. The only time that we can care is when we can blame white, specifically white conservatives, which is why Trump gets so much flack, even though there's no there's no evidence to back up all the flack that he gets. So that is the point of this whole video. That um, it's not that I disagree, that I don't think Black Lives Matter. It's just that if you're going to make the whole Black Lives Matter claim, you need to start where the biggest pile of bodies. If you're trying to fix an issue, you don't, like I say, if someone comes up to you and they're injured and their leg was cut off and they're bleeding out and they have a paper cut on their arm, you don't go put a band-aid on the paper cut before you tourniquet the leg and get them to a hospital or get medical attention. This is the problem with the Black Lives Matter, is that they're focusing on the paper cut and ignoring the leg that's been cut off. And that's the problem too, is that because they're people that generally just aren't that intelligent, and or they're just largely swayed by emotion, is that they take any form of criticism as meaning that you disagree with them and you think racism is a good thing. That's how they tend to take it. Because I mean, if they don't take it that way, then they're absolutely insane for being all butthurt about people not completely agreeing with them. The problem that the overwhelming majority of people that disagree with them, I'd say probably 99.9%, is that they just recognize that their solution for the problem is more of the same. And okay, well, what is the classic example? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's insanity. And this is what the Black Lives Matter people are doing, is that they're pretending that the police and racism is causing the majority of their pain and suffering, when it's objectively not true. And again, the numbers bear that out. I've made videos on it. You can look those up yourself. And yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about. I don't want to make the video too long, but the whole point being is that this stuff really, really bothers me. The fact that there's 9 million people enslaved today, like, that is infinite amount of times more unjust than what is going on, at the hands. And not that what any police brutality is okay, but this should be right at the top of our list. And the other problem too about this too, is the last thing to point out, is that um, there's far more slaves now than there was enslaved in the States. Like, slavery in the States happened on a very small scale. Not that it was okay by any shape or any way, but it happened on a very small scale compared to most other parts of the world throughout history. And that's the problem too, is that whenever you hear the word slavery, what's the first thing anybody thinks about? Oh, it's blacks in the southern states. Even though there were countries and areas that slavery happened on a much larger scale, for a much longer amount of time than the blacks in the states. I mean, and more whites were enslaved throughout history than blacks in the States were. Not blacks as a whole, I don't believe, but um, again, so the idea that you people just think about that, it just goes to show how terrible the public school systems are, that's the first thing people think about, when in reality this should be the first thing people think about. So anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email, I got links in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last thing, as always, check me out on Twitter and check me out on BitChute. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.